What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode here of the AI Marketing Stacks podcast. And I'm here with the one and only Mr. Jim Halbert, uh, chilling there in the office. No, I'm here with Steve Raju. And when I asked Steve for his bio, he says the thing that he does is he says Steve, or the name, fuck, I'm going to butcher it. The name Steve Raju from License to Quill, and then leave it at that. But who Steve is marketer, copywriter, consultant, and he's doing a lot of really cool stuff with AI, which we'll get into in a little bit. But a consultant for like companies kind of on the bleeding edge of science and technology. So I think you mentioned fintech, SaaS startups, biotech, deep space exploration, and he's all about using AI to solve like urgent and pressing, long-standing problems, right? So how do you use AI to solve those? And actually, one thing he was sharing with me before this call, which we'll get into, is how he's using this exact method with a combination of AI tools to really be targeted in his messaging and land some pretty hefty clients. And I've known Steve for a while. He's been a copy coach with us and done some things like that. But every time I'm talking with him, he always has innovative ways to apply direct response marketing and copywriting, and I always find it super fascinating. So I wanted to bring him on. Anything I missed in that illustrious bio when I butchered your your tagline?
I should say it properly, shouldn't I?
Yes,
Because
you
I
should.
worked really hard on that. So I normally do it in like a Roger Moore. So it's like a 70s James Bond. So the name's Raju, Steve Raju, licensed to Quill. And it used to be I write copy that leaves you shaken and stirred, but it's kind of more AI. I haven't figured out a new one yet, but yeah.
Perfect.
If you're listening to this, then feel free to drop me a line. Let me know.
Yeah, let's share some lines with him. Awesome. So I guess, first question I have for you is what are you working on right now related to marketing and or AI that has you most excited?
Well, I think I was just mentioning I went on holiday, I went on vacation for 2 months, came back and thought, twiddling my thumbs, what am I going to do now? ChatGPT was blowing up. So I figured out a way to attract like big whale, unicorn, mammoth kind of clients, people of a different caliber than I'm kind of used to in our direct response world. So that was a combination of ChatGPT, Claude, and various kind of LinkedIn tools. So we have a meeting on Friday actually with the global innovation lead of a pharmaceutical giant with a revenue of $40 billion, who's interested in an AI kind of innovation session for their team, and that would be at a 6 or 7 figure engagement, which is great because I take my cut and I spent most of the time just watching other people present on PowerPoint,
Nice.
which I'm happy about.
You said it's a long ways from the 3 to 5K retainers, right? That you started off
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
copywriting.
and no offense to people that write about blood pressure, but I mean, you can only write about it every so often before you start to want to tear your eyes out. This is something really interesting, and by using AI to change my positioning, I was attracting by referrals people who are involved in the next generation battery storage for self-driving cars, deep space exploration, decentralized AI-powered health tests to kind of roll out new medicines really quickly. Health equity is a big thing, of making sure that those of Hispanic background, for example, African Americans, that they get early diagnosis and treatment of cancers because they do not have the same results that they should do right now. But getting AI to solve actual problems, substantial problems, actually make a difference in the world. And so that's very exciting.
Nice. Nice. I'm going to repeat back to you kind of what you had said to me about one of the ways that you're using AI, because I think it's probably multifaceted. And we'll get into the tools that you're using, but I found it pretty interesting. So I'm going to kind of say it. And if I get it wrong, just correct me in the parts I get wrong.
So,
But essentially, what you're doing is you've come up with a series of prompts, right? And a couple different AI tools, but let's say a series of prompts that allows you to analyze and figure out what are the most pressing problems that people, for example, on LinkedIn have, kind of the big fish client, the big whale clients that you're going after. What problems do they have? And then using, which I thought was so cool, and I think more people should do this because they stay very small in their direct response world, but you're taking direct response principles like what's the real source of your problem or whatever, and these prompts will basically identify what the problem is, explain this is what you think is the problem, and then say this is the real problem that you have, and then offer your solution. And so by combining AI, going into kind of different segments of the market that direct response doesn't normally live in, and then taking these direct response tactics, you've kind of tapped into a pretty cool opportunity. Did I get that right, more or less?
You've nailed it pretty much. Yeah, a series of prompts to say, here you can mention a persona, whether it's a chief marketing officer or a vice president of sales. Just shoot for the moon. Any interesting niche or industry that you're interested in, and then you can get it to give you the 10 most pressing problems. And something that I learned was that in every industry, they have what's known as the Monday morning problem. It's the problem that stresses them out and causes them issues all week. They try and forget about it whenever they're watching the game on the weekend or doing whatever they do. And then when they come back on Monday morning and they turn the computer back on again, it's there again. And so when you're positioned really well, when you use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever is that you prefer to give those pressing Monday morning problems, and not only to show what they think is the root cause, what the actual root cause is, but then explain it to them using their jargon, using their language. I mean, generative AI can do all of that for you. And you can even say, can you turn that into compelling LinkedIn tagline, compelling LinkedIn bio that would compel them to want to reach out to you? And then you use your featured section to make it easy for them to book a call. So this is taking direct response, you could say methods and tactics, but using them to position yourself and using really fresh language that really stands out to these people, these potential whale clients. Yeah, they're all on LinkedIn, and they're not used to this kind of direct way of communication, but they find it very refreshing, because at the end of the day, they're more interested in getting problems solved, and they'll throw money at it if they think you can do it.
Yeah, there's two very interesting things for me in that, which is what I already said, which is I think direct response, even in the origin of direct response, it started very small, right? Like it was, direct mail selling certain kinds of things. And now you can see how direct response has, I'm seeing ads for like how to, play the piano and how to fix your vocal coaching that is using like direct response tactics. So you can see that a lot of these principles have expanded because, they're based on like the psychology of the human mind, which has not changed.
Exactly.
So I think expanding that to and finding innovative ways to use it and place it is super interesting. So that's the first thing I like about what you're doing. And the other thing is that, ChatGPT is cool. It's a really friendly interface for interacting with this tool, but it is so general that sometimes when people try to go in and solve the problem, they run into this position of like, it takes me just as long to use AI as if I just did it on my own, right? Because it is a skill set of how do you interact with a tool, or how do you interact with other softwares, and how do you create custom solutions to very specific problems, right?
Exactly.
But what's amazing and what's different is once you solve it with AI, okay, sometimes the language model changes a little bit, but once you solve it, it's done. And so I think like it just opens up so many, if you can like do that for people, solve these pressing problems and be the one to be like, look, I'm going to solve it. And once I solve it, it's done. You're not going to have to worry about that anymore. You can free up resources for other things. It's so powerful. And I think doing those two together is super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote an email yesterday where my kid was on a bit of a rampage, tearing up the house, and was wanting my attention all day. And ordinarily you'd kind of write off that day that it was pretty hard to get much done. But by using a new AI SaaS, I think it's Quiet Quill, I banged out a book, a 48,000 word book in 60 minutes flat, which actually read pretty well.
Mm.
And it was about the similarities between the human mind and the AI deep learning kind of neural network. And it had done all the research, made the outline, made this book, and I can now go and I can even use Claude to edit it and suggest improvements, put my anecdotes and stories in, and I could be published on Amazon within 48 hours as an authority. In fact, this big meeting, I suggested that if he has a particular pet project or an idea, that I could take that and have a book and be published on Amazon and go to the meeting saying, oh, by the way, did you not know that I'm an author? I've actually written a book about that, which skyrockets your positioning as an expert. And I mean, this wasn't even possible last year. Right. But I think what the exponential growth of AI shows that our biological brain is the bottleneck. It's our lack of imagination and ideas. And so this is where any exercise you can do to, and it's the same in copywriting, to work on your creativity, to look at what other people are doing and play around. That's really what's going to open up some tremendous opportunities for everybody if they use the tools.
Agreed. So what are the top three, let's say, AI tools that you use in your workflow, and how do you use them?
So for LinkedIn particularly, there's one called Mystique, which is still in beta, mystique.ai, I think. And what that will do is we'll take any high performing post, the ones that have thousands of likes, because on LinkedIn, it's not just the content, the certain formats do really well, certain structures, if they have rhythm or they hit certain emotional points, you can paste in any post or bio, and because it's been trained on thousands of high performing posts already, it will automatically then say, okay, here's the outline and here's the fill in the blanks, and it tells you in square brackets, like, put this here, say something about yourself here, give 5 problems here, and then you just fill in the blanks, and then within 3 minutes you've produced a perfectly formatted, original, very likely to perform well post on LinkedIn. So that's Mystique. On LinkedIn, it's really more about giving than taking. 90% of the game on LinkedIn is about engaging with other people, whether it's either connecting with them, going in their DMs, following them, or engaging. So there's an engage.ai, which I don't automatically post comments, but I'll get it to read a post of someone that I'm really interested in engaging with. It'll read the post, and then I can even put a custom prompt about thank them for the post, reiterate an observation that they made. If they asked a question in the post, answer the question. If they didn't ask a question, then you pose a question to them to keep the conversation going. Do it in a natural, non-sensational kind of language. That's Engage AI. And then Taplio, if you're using LinkedIn at all, I think 4,000 of the top creators, it's their biggest secrets. That's Taplio. And that will really, it's an AI-powered it searches for the best hooks, it creates the best posts, it keeps you present, it finishes off your writing, it learns your writing style, it will create those 2-step kind of posts you see on Facebook, and it automatically DMs. It's got lots of features on it, but it's not like the old let's just spam everybody and see what sticks. But it's an AI intelligent outreach kind of platform. So that's Taplio, and I'm using all 3 of them to great effect.
Love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna look at. I haven't heard of any of this, so I'm gonna look up all of them after this call. The other question I have is, what's one like super fun or silly or very personal use case that you found with any AI tool that you're like, this is so neat, this is so cool? I don't know if anyone's tried this or played around with this.
So I've known a little bit about my Mid-Journey. I like to have personalized pictures of myself doing stupid things, and that's part of the personal kind of James Bond-esque kind of branding. And so if you using Mid-Journey is great. I know there's Leonardo.ai, which is also really good. But what I do is I in my Mid-Journey prompts, I like to use cinematic stills. I say I want a cinematic still. And I say what angle, and I say if it's exterior, what the lighting is. But then I also mention directors that I like. I say Christopher Nolan, cinematographers that I like Roger Deakins, the actual cameras, movie cameras, if it's like the Sony ZV or whatever. And then what I do is I get like a really good prompt. Maybe it's like an Indian spy wearing a Tom Ford suit, walking down Whitehall in London in the afternoon, exterior lighting. So you get your 4 options. I upscale the one I like the most, and then I use something called Insight Face, which is a Python library which has been wrapped up in a kind of a Discord plugin that you can install and add to your Mid-Journey personal server. And then all you do then is you right-click on it and say face swap. And if you upload your own selfie, you can then put your own selfie on any scene or person that you've kind of created. So that's why I was able to. It appears that I'm like arm wrestling a robot, or I'm Indiana Jones, or all of a sudden I'm in Casino Royale and I'm about to kind of go up against a terrorist or something. And that kind of graphic, although it's obviously AI generated, is so different to what the generic kind of things that you see. It really pops. So I love experimenting with Midjourney and particularly Insight Face. So you can Google around on that, and on YouTube there's a lot of tutorials about how to use it. It's really easy, but yeah, that's great fun.
That's amazing. Yeah, Insight Face, that's cool. And I like what you talked about, like specifying the cameras and then specifying the director. Like, I feel like that gives you so much juice when you're,
Yes,
because you can go pick a camera from a certain age or pick a camera from that has some sort of certain style, or if you like a director, figure out what camera do they normally use and then use that. And yeah, I feel like it gives you so much. It curates your output so much better than if you're like,
yeah,
make it dark and spooky or whatever versus, do it in the style of XYZ director.
exactly, yeah.
What is the last thing you've learned in marketing that surprised you?
Oh, that's a deep question. I guess, I mean, I've been doing it a while now, and there are things that appear to be brand new. Even with AI, you could say that it's new. But what I've been seeing is that the development of AI is the same as the development of our brain. AI, the neural network deep learning kind of paradigm, was a crude way to try to mimic the way that our brains work. Realizing that computers were quickly hitting a ceiling of, if we were just going to prescribe and say we want to get this done. So it was all like, if this, then this, if this, then this, and it's too slow. And then we went from CPUs to GPUs, and we started doing things in parallel. But then this like software 2.0, which is, this is what I want, this is what I'm starting with, now you figure it out. And I was watching something recently about where Stockfish, which is like the chess grandmaster engine, which is like plays at a level of 3000, which is nothing better than that. And when Google's Alpha Zero team, they got this AI to learn how to play chess, but they didn't teach it any rules. All they did was they showed it like millions of games, and it figured out that it was a game, that all the pieces, how they can move, but then very quickly graduated onto what are the winning positions. So they put them head to head against each other, and Stockfish, the 3000 almost perfect kind of engine, which has been programmed by all these grandmasters, against his AI that didn't even exist or know about chess a few months ago. They had 28 games, and the AI Alpha Zero won 28-0. And that is what I find surprising in one sense, in that I'd have thought that it'll be a little bit more even, especially for a brand new AI. But also when you see the development, I find lessons from the way AIs develop and learn to apply to my own thinking. How when algorithms, when they break down, it's normally how we break down. When we get too obsessed on outliers or biases or not the full information or things like that. So some things are surprising to me, but when I break them down and apply them to myself, I think, well, I think exactly in the same way. So we can learn a lot for our own imagination, creativity, skill sets from just learning about AI. So to try to fill that gap, I'm doing the machine learning specialization. I would recommend anybody who has a passing interest in AI to do it's Stanford University's on Coursera. And you don't have to be too interested in the algebra or anything like that. But if you just want to know how AIs work, it's super fascinating, and also give you an idea of what's possible, and give you a leg up on everybody else.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of juice to be squeezed from going and investigating, not just like go and look at what happened with chess and go and look at what happened with Go, both those games and even Texas Hold'em poker, but go look at those three games that were like solved by AI, and look at I think some of the phenomena that happen in those little spaces that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to will give you a clue and an indication to how AI will play out in the rest of our world, right? And one thing that you said that kind of made me think of that is that it started, I think it was the Go, because I think Go is a more complicated game than chess, but I think it was the Go algorithm started doing things that it started doing moves that even professional Go players didn't understand. They were completely new and novel ways of solving the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's super interesting because there's probably spaces in human life and human experience and ways to solve problems that we haven't even come across yet. And I think learning from the way, like you said, the way machine learning works and the way the AI works and the kind of learning from that, I think that's really powerful. Amazing. So I guess my last question is just where can people find more about you or what you're up to?
You can go, most of my output is now on my email list, which you can join by going to licensetoquill.co.
Awesome. I'll put a
And
link here.
I write about, anything that's happened that day, but particularly more about AI and how we can actually use it. Because things are moving so fast, it's very easy to get lost or kind of confused or disoriented by how fast things are moving. But if we just focus on solving problems, and then what's the best thing to use right now, we'll always find use for it, and it will always be helpful to us. So licensetoquill.co, and that's where I write more about that kind of stuff.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this interview. It really did stimulate a lot of new thoughts. And the last thing you said, I like that a lot. Like just focus on the problems and focus on the tools that you have right now. And that's a solution to a lot of the overwhelm people feel. So I think that's a great way to kind of wrap it all up. But thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll probably have you on at some point again.
Yeah. Cheers, Luke. Thanks.
All right, man.